Okay, so I wanted to watch this really quick. Is this a long video? Kinda, but not really. Okay, let me mute it. All right. So I wanted to watch this for a while. It was from right before War Within launched, and I think now that I've done story, this is going to be even more interesting. This is an official discussion that the World of Warcraft channel posted about storytelling, and so I think this is going to be pretty interesting to watch because I missed it before. Is this muted? Yep. It's a new era of Warcraft storytelling. And I think almost everybody would agree with that statement now. If you have done War Within story, you would probably agree that this feels like a new direction they're going in. Yeah, that was a really sick cutscene.
Welcome to a special edition of Wowcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. The team is heads down on wrapping up the expansion ahead of launch, but today we are joined by a few incredible guests. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Maria Hamilton. I'm the Associate Design Director on WoW.
Hello, my name is Morgan Day. I am one of the Associate Game Directors working on The War Within.
And I'm Taryn Gregory, the Cinematic Narrative Director for World of Warcraft.
So how does the team even approach something as ambitious as the World Soul Saga?
In a word, enthusiastically. We have a really unique opportunity here with the 20th anniversary of World of Warcraft that's fast approaching.
There's no way. We'll see. Is this a real interview or did they script all these answers? Let's see.
We really wanted to take a step back and reevaluate how we develop our expansions.
Let's see.
In the past, we might have come at it from the perspective of, well, we've done this a couple times. How did we do it in the past? And moving forward philosophically, we really want to take a fresh new approach and take our community's excitement and feedback and really make sure that's at the forefront of all of our development moving forward. We wanted to build upon
Okay, I don't think it's scripted.
the successes of Dragonflight, right? We felt like we built a really strong foundation there and take a lot of those successes and look to achieve new goals as we move into the World Soul Saga and the War Within.
Yeah, it really felt like Dragonflight, people weren't raving about the story being like mind-blowing or anything, but it was good. It was fine. It felt like a pivot, it definitely felt like something new, like they were trying some new things. And they showed us with Dragonflight, to my extreme relief, that they were able to include some beloved, well-known characters, like all the dragon aspects, like Caligos, like Rathian, and even introduce some new people that were pretty likable, like Sibelian is a really fun character, and not make everybody hate them by the end of the expansion. I feel like they did a pretty good job. In fact, I would say that there's characters that I like even more now after having gone through Dragonflight, which is a really good sign. Like Nosdormu, I think got some solid. Chromie is probably the biggest example of a character like that, who before Dragonflight, I didn't know a lot about her. I felt like, you see her occasionally, but this whole story arc that she had with Nosdormu, I thought that was actually so sweet. There's a little side quest there where she's worried about him, and it's really beautiful the way all of that is resolved. So they did a really good job handling existing characters, and it's something that they have, notoriously struggled with in expansions like Shadowlands or BFA. So to me, it felt like a pivot towards the right direction. So when they say that they were building a strong foundation with Dragonflight, you can see the fruit of that in War Within.
Some of those ideas would be allowing the players to
Jazzy,
have new ways to express themselves and make sure that there's a ton of variety in the content that they're experiencing in World of Warcraft. Additionally, we want to make sure that we're bringing World of Warcraft to as broad an audience as possible, and we're really working to build new accessibility features and also just new exciting ideas that we also want to bring to the table. Finally, guiding us and crafting this epic adventure is the narrative, right? That's at the forefront of all of our ideas and all of the stories that we're developing along the way. We always like to plan ahead when we're developing World of Warcraft, but this time is a bit different, right? It's multiple expansions all at once that we're
That's
really
so
trying
crazy.
to plant the seeds for these future.
They're working on 3 expansions all at the same time. I'm a little worried about that. I'm actually pretty worried about that. How are they going to do this? Are they not? I mean, they must have planned everything that's going to happen within these 3 expansions, but it seems like a little chaotic, and I feel like it's asking a whole lot of
ideas as we move forward in the World Soul Saga. And at times, I've been in meetings with our creative direction group, and it can be a bit of a challenge to keep all of these ideas in my head all at once. There's a lot of threads that are flying around, but I think the team, is really energized by that opportunity to kind of tell such an epic story. And thankfully, Taryn is here, and he's going to talk a bit about all of those awesome ideas as we move forward. And he's kind of the expert of pulling all of those threads and bringing them all together.
It's kind of like the conspiracy meme sometimes with the dots and the
right.
Yeah,
threads.
that's what it sounds like.
What are you most excited for, Taryn, with the War Within story?
Well, working on World of Warcraft is always exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love working on this world and with this team. It's been really, really, really exciting getting to work with Chris Metzen again after his return and setting the vision for the World Soul Saga, this new chapter of Warcraft that's going to take us through the next few updates. As Morgan mentioned, right, like during Dragonflight, we feel that represented a lot of change, a lot of lessons applied, lessons learned. Looking back on Shadowlands, I believe that we took a lot from that story and developed new ways that we were going to present our characters, our villains, our storylines. And Dragonflight was the first step.
That's a nice way to
I
put
believe
it.
that War Within is a great leap forward in our ambitions to create a compelling narrative, bring our characters to the forefront, and really open the first chapter in the next pivotal moment of World.
Man, that's nice to hear him say that before the expansion came out. This is from 10 days ago. So I love to see the confidence in the story before it's out. They know they created something great that was compelling and that was a leap forward. That is amazing. It didn't just happen by accident.
Warcraft that will set the stakes for the story that will unfold throughout the World Soul Saga.
What would you say are some of the narrative aspirations of the saga?
Well, I feel that we've set the bar really high, and we want to meet those expectations and even exceed them. Really trying to create something in the vein of the essence of Warcraft, or the best of Warcraft, bringing that to the forefront. The ways we're going to do that is really investing in our world and story. We always say world and story are some of the most critical parts of the appeal of World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
But what does that really mean? Our world is a character. It is fleshed out through all means of small stories, big stories. But we want people to be invested in our characters. We want them to go on the adventure with them, to learn more.
It's the last Titan.
I believe we have some really compelling stories with some of our most known characters, some of our lesser known characters, and some new characters that we're going to meet along the way.
Something that I love about the World Soul Saga, and we were talking about the 20th anniversary earlier, is that's a really unique strength of World of Warcraft, right? We have characters that you've literally grown up with, right? Like at the launch of World of Warcraft, Anduin, I think, was literally in a crib, right?
He was a little boy. He was a little boy.
Yeah,
have you seen my father?
Yeah, exactly. And we've watched.
He said, can you play from the beginning of the story? Yes, you can. So if you want to play from the beginning of the story and go all the way through, you can do that. You start a fresh character. I would suggest starting with Exile's Reach, honestly. I think you have to start with Exile's Reach if it's your first character. But if not, you can start in your your race starting zone. Do those stories, and there's an NPC in town, in the main city, that will let you choose which expansion you do. So you can just do all those expansion stories in order. You could start with Classic, then BC, then Wrath, and just follow it along that way. That's what I would
him grow from
that
boy to the boy prince to now the king that he is today. And this journey is going to continue to take characters like Anduin and continue to see them evolve, and others as well. Like Dagram plays a huge role in the War Within, and that's another character that was just a little baby when we started out, and they're going to be taking a much larger role in this epic saga.
I think another.
Oh my God. That was Dagger.
And this journey is going to continue to take characters like Anduin and continue to see them evolve, and others as well. Like Dagram plays a huge role in the War Within.
So Dagran is probably one of my favorite characters. I think he's pretty well written. He is someone who could have been very annoying, but ends up not being that annoying after all. And he, man, the interactions that he had with Magni, it was really sweet. I don't want to give spoilers because I know there's people who haven't gone through War Within Story yet. But hey, Horse, thank you for the 7-month resub. I really appreciate you. Thank you for that. I'm thinking, how can I say this without spoiler? Okay, I know. There's one little conversation that they have where Dagran tells Magni that he's worried about him, that he just seems like he's angry and hurt all the time. And at the time, Magni's really going through it, suffering, like with the fact that he is this made of diamonds, and it's clearly pretty uncomfortable for him. And they have a pretty nice conversation. And Magni says, I'm just worried about you. Like, I just want you to be safe. And Dagran's like, okay, I know, but I wish that you could have a little more fun in our adventures together too. And it was pretty wholesome because Magni's like, well, I will as long as you're around. And it was sweet. There's a little interlude where that all takes place in the Ringing Deeps. And that was probably one of my favorite parts of the expansion, actually. It's like you're finding out what's happening with the void influence in the Ringing Deeps. I'm saying this pretty vaguely. And you go through and you pick up clues with Magni and Dagran. And as you're doing that, it just gets creepier and creepier. They actually managed to write it so that it's very unsettling the more clues that you get, how messed up this situation is and how horrifying it is, what is happening to the people that used to live in these towns.
And that's another character that was just a little baby when we started out, and they're going to be taking a much larger role in this epic saga.
Yeah. I think another lesson
really
we learned is cadence and delivery. There were some instances where it felt maybe like the story was very start and stop, or people had to wait around for a long time for resolutions to long-established storylines. And so in trying to address that, we're really looking at the saga as the opportunity to resolve more storylines, bring up new questions, drive the story forward. And one of the things that helps us do that now is the improved content cadence that has been established in Dragonflight. This gives us some really, really handy tools for being able to have smaller updates between larger updates in which we can have the story move forward, we can focus on individual characters, flesh out their stories more, or even just give the sense that the world is always moving forward and that there's something always new to see in World of Warcraft when it comes to our narrative.
Speaking of characters,
how often are we getting
is
updates?
Everywhere. She is amazing.
Does anyone know?
What do you think about our new villain?
Xal'atath is very much an interesting character, and I'm super excited to see the reception that people have had since we announced that she's going to be, very much starring in the beginning of the War Within. When it comes to our villains and the development of our villains, we have learned many lessons. We feel that
she's super evil. She is terrifying.
Maybe there's been a couple instances.
She is like, I think that this short that they put out with the Bug Queen and the Bug Princess, where Xal'atath gets involved, I think this was probably some of the best portrayal of the Void that I have ever seen in World of Warcraft. To me, it really felt like the first time that I had seen World of Warcraft take, spooky energies like Void, that's normally just, it's that weird purple stuff that can make you strong. Like, normally it's kind of boring the way that they talk about the Void. But in that short, they actually made the Void seem tempting, seem like something that comes at a terrible cost, something that changes you into someone, but that also can take advantage of some of your innate traits that could be twisted for dark ends, like ambition. So like maybe there's something in you that would make you more susceptible to these kinds of promises from a person like Xal'atath. And so to me, it's a way more interesting way of dealing with this kind of dark magic and way more believable. It's something that's feels like a more realistic threat.
This is where we didn't quite do the work to earn them out or introduce them to our players in a way that felt
hot.
organic or compelling. Xalatath is an opportunity to have this character that, for those who played Shadow Priest and Legion, it was a very compelling character. She's marked very, very highly in terms of like kind of fan favorite, but also lesser known. And that's kind of a magic combination of like, hey, let's take this character and bring them into the spotlight and give them a really compelling arc. And much like we had done throughout Dragonflight in the development of the primal incarnates like Iridikron and Viranoth and Farak, we put a lot of effort into bringing them into the story one step at a time, introducing them to the player, giving them compelling motivations, making them a dimensional character, making their desires, and making them real people that we can understand and get along with.
I think they were pretty successful with that in general, with the primal incarnates. From what I've heard from others, the reception to characters like Iridikron, seems to have been very well received by player base. I thought Farak was a pretty good villain, and I also like Viranoth, so I think they did a good job of helping me understand why they're there and why they're doing what they're doing. I felt like I even reacted better to Viranoth deciding to come over to our side than most people.
Xalatath is now on her own trajectory to step into the limelight of World of Warcraft, and we're hoping to meet all of those same things. And I really feel that Xalatath is going to be a very interesting character as we watch her story unfold.
I've been quite both surprised and excited by the reception of Xalatath. I think having kind of those foundations where there's some of the community that's like, oh, you're just getting to know this person, where other people have, like Taryn mentioned, have been kind of questing with her or experiencing her story in the past. And there's also a lot of really fun stuff and opportunities as we are able to plan so far ahead now, where we can plant these seeds knowing, this is the destination. And as we're moving towards that direction, what are things that we can kind of plant? And maybe the players find them, maybe they see it, and maybe they don't. There was some text that showed up in Dalaran where they were talking about like, oh, wait a minute, that's new. What's going on here? And they were kind of piecing together some stuff.
One thing
Oh, what? Oh my God, I didn't know they did that. Holy shit.
That showed up in Dalaran.
There was text they put in Dalaran. Fascinating. And you still have no idea why it chose you. None of the other council members have yet to see it. What?
A minute, that's new. What's going on here? And they were kind of piecing together.
It's been too long, Drendon. Glad to see you back in Dalaran. So he was gone
together
for
some stuff.
One thing
they did set that up. It has. I'm grateful the council accepted me back so readily.
That we set forth to do was mid-Dragonflight.
Oh my God.
In the spirit of wanting to seed these stories sooner.
That's really cool.
To have people along for the ride to notice the little details.
Really cool.
And there was this moment with Iridikron.
Man, now I wish I'd pay more attention in Dragonflight.
When he was escaping through a portal. And in development, we had just slipped this little shadow, elven silhouette in the background of the portal. And a lot of people were like, no one's ever going to notice that.
No,
and
you didn't.
That's the portal. And a lot of people were like, no one's ever going to notice that. And we're like, that's the idea. The idea is that it's so subtle that when they discover it, it's going to generate all this conversation. And it did, right? There was all this conversation about Xalatath, and everyone started to get really excited.
Man, that's so cool. I'm really glad, because this is what they used to do back in my day. This is what they used to do. Like, I remember playing in vanilla in the Elden days, and there was so much mystery around things like Ashbringer. Like, I think you could fish up a lore text that had information about Ashbringer, and for so long people were wondering if there was some way to fish Ashbringer out. Like, I think it's these little mysteries that they put into the world that give so much life to the story and makes everybody want to talk about it and wonder and try to find anything else that they might have stuck in there. Like Genshin Impact actually is a game that does this phenomenally well. They're constantly adding these kinds of things that they know is going to get people. They know that the right people will like pause on a very specific frame, or they'll find like the most random obscure hint ever. And then once that gets out, everybody's going to be talking about it.
And so that kind of started building
That's
a
so
slow
cool.
burn on everyone getting Xal'atath into the conversation. So by the time she was announced at BlizzCon, it actually felt like, oh, yes.
It also gives you the sense of like, maybe there's something you could find if you paid attention close enough. You know, that's cool.
Been expecting this.
Obviously.
Obviously, right? So
That's neat.
it's just fun ways that we're trying to seed and plant and prepare the audience for what's ahead.
I think one of the things
The
that makes
seeds. It's good. They're giving us the seeds.
Xal'atath really, really interesting for players is there's an awful lot of them that want to be her buddy, who don't see her as a villain, right? So no villain is the villain of their story. They're the hero of their story. And that makes this interesting, too, because we can play with that a little bit. We can make sure that we're leaning into it. You know, is she really the villain?
So the world is just as important as the villains.
What if she's not even the... What? No, she's definitely... She's evil.
Maria,
She
what
is
approach
straight
have
up
you taken
evil.
for world building?
I mean, as Taryn pointed out, and
Yeah,
I think
she's
we've
really-
talked about in the
she's not
past,
my
the
buddy.
world really is one of our main characters. And it's really important that when we go into these different zones that we've created, they feel alive, they feel appropriate to their cultures that live within them. Unexpectedly, perhaps, we decided to make this a very vertical expansion. So we're starting off on the surface in the Isle of Dorne, which has your classic plains, your beautiful grasslands, and big city, Dornegal. This is where our Earthen live, trying to carry out the edicts of the Titans. And this is where the Coreway is located. So we go down the Coreway and we get down into the Ringing Deeps. And the Ringing Deeps is where the machine speakers, the Earthen that are dedicated to tending the machines and the vast works of the Titans live and work. And so where we're really starting to subvert expectations is when you go from the Ringing Deeps into Hollowfall. It's a huge, huge area. You can't tell that it's underground. You can't tell that it's a cavern. It's lit by this enormous crystal. And then as you descend, you're going to go down into the last kingdom of the Nerubians.
Yeah,
into
Ajkahet.
And this is all about danger
So good.
and dark elegance.
So
And the whole area
good.
is meant to serve as an opportunity to learn about the Nerubians and their big
good.
city there, which has been built upon centuries and centuries and centuries of decay. They just build the city on top of itself.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that going vertically down.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we learned from Zaralek Cavern in Dragonflight. We knew we were making an underground space. We knew we wanted players to be able to transition seamlessly into that space. The idea was to sort of give you this increasingly wondrous, joyful descent.
Yeah.
And make the
I gotta say, so far, every time I need to go from Dornegal down into the Ringing Deep, it is fun to do it. It is fun to go down into the tunnel and like swoop out from the other side. I would say, I guess once I find my way around the map better, then it will be more seamless for me to go from there to Hollowfall. So far, I'm getting lost every time. Like right now, I still need to use the flight paths because I cannot remember where to go ever. But yeah, I'm glad that they decided to make it vertical because of dragon riding. I feel like dragon riding kind of has to influence the way that they design the world going forward, because ideally you want the main city to be at the top and then everything else you can ride down from it, or they need to have teleports to high places that are relevant so that you can easily get to where you need to go. Like if they're not going to design it in this vertical way, teleport me up to the sky so that I can go where I need to be. Like have a central location. Yeah. Oh, Survival Haddock, thank you for the $1. Mari Strider, thank you for the 10-month resub. Virelian, thank you for subbing. I appreciate it.
world really feel alive. Make it feel like it fits with those cultures.
Slipstreams up would work, yeah.
The reactions that we saw from people playing on beta when they first entered Hollowfall, which is amazing.
Yeah, I love the attention to detail on all the zones. I mean, you just mentioned Hollowfall, but like something that it took me a while to even notice it, but when I did, it like blew my mind was, like you mentioned, there's that huge crystal underground, and it's the sole light source. So if you look around the zone, all of the trees and the plants are actually facing that light source. Like if you think about plants out in the world, they kind of follow the sun. Well, what if the sun was static?
We have a desire to help
I didn't know that. I'll notice
make
it next
everything feel right.
Wow.
Everything needs to feel like it makes sense. So for the
Thank you so much. Everything needs to feel like it makes sense.
they have these airships, and so all of their tables and chairs and props and things that are scattered around their city, they all have these brackets on them because they would have been mounted on the airships when they traveled. Another good example is
oh my God.
This done was static.
and so all of their tables and chairs and props and things that are scattered around their city, they all have these brackets on them because they would have been mounted on the airships when they traveled.
That is so great.
Another good example.
It's that kind of attention to detail that shows that you care. That's love put into the world.
The earthen. So the earthen are made of stone,
Yeah.
and their beds, entertainingly, look almost like a barbecue because they like to be warm. So
Oh my
there's
God.
fiery coals underneath them on their beds, and you can
I didn't notice this before.
see
Wow, I need to pay better attention. I'm missing all these cool details.
One of the other things I love about the earthen is they actually have these like memory crystals because they themselves are almost more of a construct, but this memory crystal has, their experiences, their memories, their, life story in them.
Right.
And early on in the campaign, we learn about that memory crystal. And Dagran, who's quite the little tinkerer, finds this fascinating, and there's like a whole quest line where you get to learn about these memory crystals and you kind of put them back in the archive and you get to learn about this culture as you're kind of experiencing through the lens of these memory crystals.
Oh my God, I did.
And then for the Nerubians, we have a really funny local story, a really funny sort of take on what would happen if you encountered a Nerubian who had a fear like arachnophobia, but they're terrified of bipedal creatures because they don't have enough limbs, and it's just creepy, and it freaks them out.
Oh my God, we got to do that quest today.
And there's so many more examples. The team really had a great time building out these cultures and these stories.
One of the things Morgan mentioned earlier was making it easier for players to play the way they want to play. How is that being reflected in the content we're building?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly learned a lot from Dragonflight. One of the areas that we started to improve on and now have continued is some UI improvements around both the icons on quests in the world, but also...
Oh my God. The quest icons are so much better now. And most importantly, I can click on any of these little icons and it will put the yellow diamond so I can follow it where I need to go. So I can click on a quest, I can click on the exit or any of these little things. It will show me where I need to go next. And that is super helpful because I get lost very, very easily. The only complaint that I have is that once you have learned a flight path, I feel like this is such a nitpick. It's so tiny. I feel like the flight path learned icon, like not green, but after you learned it, is the same color as the ground. And this makes it really hard for me to see. I just wish they would, it's super minor. I just wish it was maybe a slightly different color.
The quest journal. We've got some cool filtering that will let people find the kinds of quests that they're looking for and the kinds of activities. We have some great UI elements when you hover over markers on the map that let you see what sort of reward there might be and how much time it's going to be before something starts for events, for example.
Yes, that's amazing. All of this is built in.
Additionally, with
that has been really
the introduction of warbands, we know that players may not want to play the story over and over. They may choose to play it on one of their characters and then play other things. And so we've made sure to provide a lot of local stories. These are stories that tell more about zones themselves, tell about the cultures in those zones, tell about the places, different individual smaller characters. We've provided those in a slightly greater number than we had in the past. We are making sure that we're using some of our new features as well to help tell the story. So we have been quite cognizant of the concerns that players who don't do a lot of raiding have raised about wanting to see that final moment. And so we're allowing players to do a story mode version of the raid to have that final fight without needing to go to the trouble of getting a raid group or finding, you know, enough friends to go defeat that boss.
I had a huge problem with this in the past when I was just very casually following along with the story, but I wasn't engaged with the game enough to have a guild or to know anyone who was playing. But I still wanted to do the story quests for the patch and just follow along with what was going on. But if you're not raiding, you're kind of SOL. And I'm glad that they're fixing that, because some people just want to be a story enjoyer, want to be solo players.
Same thing with dungeons. We added follower dungeons that allow people to play
follower
by themselves.
Dungeons are
with
amazing.
Friends, and followers that are controlled by the computer. Delves is a new feature
very nice.
that we're really, really excited about. It's intended to help those outdoor players be able to pop in and do something fun and meaningful, and maybe they only have a short period of time. Now, Delves also have a progression system and a whole bunch of other stuff associated with it. So we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to understand and enjoy the story in the way that they like to play, recognizing that everybody doesn't have as much time or opportunity to sit down and, you know, join a big group of people.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the major goals, is not only with variety of things that you might be familiar with, like a lot of the cool outdoor events that you might have seen, and we want to make sure that you can kind of pick and choose the ones that you find exciting and you feel rewarded for those without feeling like you're kind of required to do everything. And then with Delves, you know, that's a new pillar of content that we're building, where you wouldn't previously have been able to kind of experience this idea of like progression, but also building upon the story that we've been discussing. There's a big bad in there named Zekvir, who's kind of a lieutenant of Xalatath, and this person's in charge of looking for the world soul memories that we're going to be learning more about as we progress through the War Within, and you'll eventually be able to unlock this Zekvir's lair, which is, you know, I kind of equate it to like Onyxia's lair. So there's this big boss at the end of this experience that really feels like it's kind of the cherry on top for this progression, as well as the story that we're telling as you experience Delves.
What's one thing you guys are excited for players to experience?
That's cool.
Oh, I think there's just some fantastic local stories out there that are helping sell some of the themes that we're exploring. We also have a fascinating
When she says local stories, she's talking about side quest trains.
situation where Anduin, who has had some pretty tough times and is doubting himself quite a bit, comes face to face with Farron, who is a great contrast.
Yeah.
She's very strong in her faith in herself and in the light, and the two of them meeting and having this opportunity to talk to each other. I think this is also a really key and important moment.
It is. It's a damn good moment.
I'm just excited for people to get to meet these new characters. And there's a lot of like really fun story, not only with those individual characters,
Really,
but also
the character dynamic between Farron and Anduin was, I think, one of the highlights of the storytelling for this expansion. I thought it was really sweet. It was really believable. It's like exactly the person that he needed to talk to at that specific moment in his life. And you can see how it affects him and changes him. And it made me care. It just makes you care. These kinds of little things they pull you in, and they make these characters feel more real. And they didn't overdo it either, which I really loved. They were pretty subtle about it.
Cultures that the team has been building. You know, a fun little detail, which isn't a spoiler, is you actually see these like lynxes that the Arathi in the zone are riding around on. And that's like a fun kind of nod to how when they set out, they actually went with some elves. And there's almost like this blend of cultures that are coming together in this zone. And it's really fun to kind of see all those little details as they express themselves in the game.
They have elf
I think
ears.
it's always an exciting time as we draw closer to the launch of an expansion where all of the content is going to be added to the game, even stuff that was obscured or hidden during testing or PTR. This classically represents the cinematics that the team has been working on for a long time and have some really amazing moments. I think the team
cinematics are so good.
Work on this, and I can't wait to see people's reactions to that content. And also, you know,
absolutely
from all directions, every tool in our toolkit, we release more multimedia
They released
projects.
this anime short, which was fantastic. They released
we saw
this
the story
short.
of Queen Ansarek in the cinematic we released. And
they are trying. It shows. It just, what I really appreciate is that it is obvious that they have put in a heroic effort in trying to tell a good story. So even if it didn't quite meet expectations, but thankfully it's not the case, you can see that they really, really They're the best.
That's in this vein of trying to build up
So
our
I'm
villains,
proud of
give
the devs
context,
that it's been
give
well
backstory,
received.
give dimensionality, and seeing how things are stirring, and
They deserve
all of
their
these
success.
different projects are coming together to really amplify and excite around the story of the War Within and set the stage for the
Nice.
ongoing World Soul Saga.
Thank you guys so much for joining
That
me
was
and
a great
talking about the
conversation.
world.
It was absolutely not scripted.